place we live, it's ancient. We can hear that in the Borna, the hills and the Boya granite waves surrounding us. And at a time when fresh kep flowed frequently and the little Malak Yonga weren't so little, giants roamed freely. This was the time of the Jimba. It liked to go near the Boya granite waves, sometimes near where the Kurlunga played. They said you could hear it approaching. With an almighty roar, Balai, the Kurlunga, would take notice, and as soon as they felt the Budjera shake from under them, they would run as fast as they could, kurt calling. The Kurlunga knew they had to get to the special Jimba tree and hide under it. It is full of sharp spikes and the Jimba would not go close to it. The Kurlunga was safe under the Jimba born. Sometimes the Jimba would terrorise families out in the open. With a great big roar, he would charge. Balai! The Kurlunga would keep up as best they could. The nearby gap was deep and the Marman and Ngank knew the Jimba did not like water, so they would be safe on the other side. But the Jimba still chased the Kurlunga, who were too small to cross the river. If you look carefully today, you will see that on one side of where the Kep once flowed are the adults, and on the other side are the Kurlunga. They became the Balka. On one side of the Kep, all the Balka are very small, and on the other side are very tall. And that is the story of the Jimba and the Balka. A lot has changed here in 100 years.
Quairading town, it's where I grew up. Little old Quairading town, it's where my heart belongs. In little old Quairading town, in little old Quairading town, in little old Quairading town.
Some children used to ride a pony to school. If you didn't have a pony or a horse, you could ride your bike. And if you didn't have a bike, you walked, usually a very long way. Or you took the bus, but once in a while that didn't quite get you there. Plenty of rain and dirt roads didn't help either.
Little old Quairading town, it's where
In the classroom, at wooden desks, it started with a quill and some ink.
It was 1913 and we had the first purpose-built school in town. A school fit for 50 children. Quairading was growing in numbers. Plenty of farming. The landscape was changing. A lot has changed since 1913. Some people back then held different beliefs compared to the norm today. This was a difficult period for many local Noongar people. There were just too many unfair rules in play. One rule in particular, a man named John Kickett decided to fight. This rule was stopping his children from attending school. It almost appeared that a system was creeping in place to segregate the local Indigenous children from the state schools. This was no good. Mr. Kickett received an education in Perth. After returning, he became a farmer. In 1912, he bought a block of land so his children could attend a school in Beverley. But the school was not ready, so John Kickett moved the family to good old Quairading. He knew the importance of a good education for his children. Unfortunately, the Indigenous students were already being sent home from the school. Edward Jacobs started writing in protest to the Minister of Education when his children were stopped. A plan was formed in town to use the hall to make a separate school for the Indigenous students. All they needed was a teacher. Edward Jacobs, John Kickett and John Fitzgerald jointly wrote a letter saying their 12 children were anxiously awaiting an education. But even with support from the good people of Quairading, a teacher never arrived. John Kickett wrote his first letter in 1915 to the Minister of Education. He wanted his children to attend the state school in Quairading. This was the start of a campaign by Mr. Kickett. He wrote letters to the Minister, the Chief Protector of Aborigines, whom he met with, and his local Member of Parliament. He gained ample support from the local people of Quairading and the school. John Kickett's daughter, Gladys, rode on horseback to gather signatures for a petition from all the local farmers who had students at school. All of them, except for 2, signed. For months on end, letters would bounce between the Minister of Education, the Director of Education and the Chief Protector of Aborigines. A letter would always return denying the education the children deserved. But every time John Kickett was denied, he would fight back with a request for reasonable justice. In the face of adversity, he remained strong. One letter to the Minister of York in 1918 mentions, "Will, sir, I have 5 of my people in France fighting. Since you were up here in your election, 1 has been killed, which leaves 4. My people are fighting for our king and country, sir. I think they should have the liberty of going to any of the state. I had 15 parents of whose children are attending the state school have signed the petition knows my children well, so they could go to school here, but was refused by the department. My children's uncles are fighting. Could you do something for the little ones?" The battle went on for 10 years. John Kickett died suddenly in August 1925. But in March 1928, a delegation of 7 Southwest Indigenous men, including one of John Kickett's sons, Algernon, had a big meeting with the West Australian Premier to discuss the issue of schooling along with many other things. This was a first of its kind in Australia. John Kickett's wife Sarah continued to strive for her children's education in the 1930s, and they say she was also very strong-hearted. John and Sarah's grandchildren did get admitted to this Quairading school many years later. And because of this story, the old building itself is very important to our community. It is now heritage listed. It is a symbol of the end of segregated education and a message of the strong will and determination of John Kickett and others who stood up for what is right. Our story is a message to all. Just look right across the road to see what we mean. Chapter 3. Tomorrow's Quairading Today. I wonder what the next 100 years holds.